Hey guys, Fletch Football Observer here, and today's video is gonna be a Premier League review show reviewing Game 6 of the 2019-2020 season. This round of fixtures threw up some interesting results, a lot of goals, 8 of them scored by one team in particular, and in this video I'm gonna review all of the talking points from all of the games. So without further ado, let's begin. We're going to begin with the current Premier League leaders Liverpool, who maintained their perfect start to the season with a 2-1 victory over Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. The Reds drew first blood on the quarter-hour mark when Trent Alexander-Arnold rifled home a free kick, and then Chelsea thought they'd equalised moments later when Cesar Azpilicueta took advantage of a pinball-type situation in the Liverpool penalty area to score. However, VAR chalked off the goal after seeing Mason Mount was offside during the build-up. To add insult to injury for the Blues, the Reds went on to double their lead moments later when Andy Robertson's cross was met by Roberto Firmino, who headed home for Jurgen Klopp's men. Deep into the second half, N'Golo Kante fired into the back of the net for the Blues to halve the deficit and set up an interesting final 20 minutes. But from there, the Reds managed to hold on, and in doing so, made it 6 wins from 6 games. A slightly unfortunate result, this one, for Chelsea. They put in a very good display against Liverpool, but in the end they come away with nothing to show for it, and I think at times they just lacked a bit of a cutting edge and composure in key attacking areas. As for Liverpool, not a very convincing performance at all, but a big win for them nonetheless. The Reds struggled to retain possession at times and looked very shaky defensively, but despite not playing up to the usual standard, they again managed to somehow get the job done. The Blues will be looking to bounce back next week when they face Brighton, whilst Liverpool travel away to Sheffield United in Saturday's lunchtime kickoff. Our next game saw Manchester City bounce back with a vengeance following last week's defeat, as this week they beat Watford by 8-0. Yes, 8-0 is what the final score was, and 5 of those goals came inside the opening 18 minutes of the game. The deadlock was broken inside the opening minute when David Silva met Kevin De Bruyne's dangerous cross to get the ball rolling for Pep Guardiola's side. Things went from bad to worse for Watford minutes later when Ben Foster brought down Riyad Mahrez in the penalty area, and from the resulting spot kick, Sergio Aguero scored his 8th goal of the season. Mahrez then got on the score sheet himself with a deflected free kick before Bernardo Silva got his first of the afternoon with a header. Nicolas Otamendi completed the 18-minute massacre when he turned home Aguero's low cross, and in the second half, Bernardo Silva grabbed his second of the afternoon before completing his hat-trick on the hour mark thanks to De Bruyne's assist. And then to round off this incredible performance, De Bruyne himself got on the score sheet, firing home beyond Ben Foster in a game that the Hornets will quickly, and very quickly at that, will want to forget. Absolutely ruthless by Man City here. They certainly bounced back with a vengeance from last week's defeat to Norwich and are back in pursuit of Liverpool at the top of the table. As for Watford, total humiliation, a complete change in mood from their performance and result against Arsenal last week. And I previously mentioned this, they will certainly want to forget about this result as soon as possible. City will be looking to continue their pursuit of Liverpool next week when they face the Reds' closest rivals Everton at Goodison Park, whilst Watford travel to Wolves on Saturday. Leicester came from a goal down to beat Tottenham 2-1 at the King Power Stadium in our next game of focus. Leicester thought they had taken the lead in the first half when Wilfred Ndidi bundled the ball over the line. However, VAR ruled out the goal for offside on Jose Perez for his involvement in the build-up. As an extra bit of insult to injury for the Foxes, Tottenham went on to draw first blood on the half-hour mark when Harry Kane fired into the back of the net despite losing his balance and falling to the ground inside the penalty area. In the second half, Tottenham themselves had a goal chalked off by VAR. This time, Serge Aurier fired home what he thought was Tottenham's second goal of the game. However, with VAR's interference, it called for another offside call, and so the goal didn't stand. And just like the first half, this time it was Tottenham's turn to face the added insult to injury moment, as moments later, Leicester themselves equalised. Ricardo Pereira's strike found the back of the net to set up an interesting and exciting finale, and in the end it was the Foxes who scored the winning goal through James Maddison, whose strike from outside the penalty area was enough to earn Brendan Rodgers' side the victory and all 3 points. This result is a big win for Leicester, a hard-fought one, especially with coming from a goal down, and this now lays down a real marker that they should be taken seriously this season as a contender to break into the top 6. As for Spurs, a lack of creativity and ideas at times, and defensively they weren't entirely stable, and many issues there that need to be addressed and discussed there. The Foxes host Newcastle in their next Premier League game, while Spurs entertain Southampton at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium next weekend. A quick-fire Chris Wood double is the subject of our next game, as that helped Burnley to their second win of the season against the Norwich side, who you'd have to say suffered a bit of a reality check following their victory against Manchester City last weekend. 10 minutes are on the clock when the deadlock was broken, with Chris Wood heading home from a Claret's corner, and mere minutes later, Burnley and Wood got their second goal each of the afternoon, with the striker sweeping home Dwight McNeil's cross as Burnley saw out the rest of the game to earn all 3 points. This result means that Burnley move up to 7th in the Premier League table following their mixed start to the season. I know it's early days, but this was seen as a very good win for Sean Dyche's men and a good platform in which to build off. And especially when you look forward, a run of some fairly favourable fixtures coming up, Burnley may fancy their chances of maintaining in and around this current league position they find themselves in. As for Norwich, they were not back down to earth here, a bad day at the office, but they will just want to move on to their next game, as both sides face tough away fixtures in their next league games, with Burnley travelling to face Aston Villa, whilst Norwich face an away trip to Crystal Palace. Our next game saw Sheffield United record their second win of the season following a 2-0 victory over Everton at Goodison Park. The Blades opened the scoring 5 minutes before half time when Oliver Norwood's corner was inadvertently headed into his own net by Yerry Mina, and deep into the second half, United put the game to bed when Liz Mousse swept home John Lundstrom's through ball as the Blades saw the game out to claim the victory and the 3 points. A big win for Sheffield United here, a little bit of a smash and grab, but it just shows you how clinical the Blades were in taking their chances. As for Everton, back-to-back losses now, and with another loss comes even more pressure on the shoulders of Marco Silva. The Toffees' defending looks unstable, and they're not scoring enough goals either at the other end of the pitch, and that's really worrying if you're a Toffees fan. Things don't get any easier for the Toffees either, as they next host Manchester City next week, while Sheffield United face a difficult task of their own as they're back at Bramall Lane and they welcome Liverpool. Our next game saw Bournemouth make it back-to-back wins following a 3-1 victory over Southampton at St Mary's. Nathan Ake got the ball rolling for the Cherries with a header from a Diego Rico corner, and later on in the half, Bournemouth thought they'd scored their second goal of the night when Josh King finally finished from Dominic Solanke's through ball. However, the goal was ruled out for offside. Eventually though, Bournemouth did go on to get their second of the night through on-loan winger Harry Wilson, who fired home 10 minutes before half-time. And shortly after the restart though, Southampton were gifted a lifeline back into the game when the referee pointed to the penalty spot after Shea Adams was tripped in the penalty area by Steve Cook. James Ward-Prowse stepped up and converted from 12 yards to half the deficit, but it was deep into injury time that Bournemouth put the game beyond all doubt, as Southampton shot themselves in the foot again. A mix-up at the back between the Saints defender Jan Bedenak and goalkeeper Angus Gunn allowed Callum Wilson to capitalise, stealing the ball from them both and then having the simple task of rolling the ball into the empty net, as Bournemouth recorded their third victory of the season. A great win by Bournemouth here, and as I've said many times before, on their day they can give anyone a tough time, and with their attacking options starting to find some form and with their rather interesting and favourable fixture list coming up, the Cherries may fancy their chances of keeping this kind of momentum going. The only question on Bournemouth's part is, how consistent can they be? It's always been something that has gone against them in the past few seasons. As for the Saints, pressure's possibly starting to go on Ralph Hasenhüttl. They're not scoring enough goals, and that's one of the many problems that this side faces, and that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. They'll be hoping for better fortune in their next league game, which is against Tottenham, whilst Bournemouth host West Ham at the Vitality Stadium. Our next game saw a very late Diego Jota goal rescue a point for Wolves, as they are still in search of their first league win of the season following a 1-1 draw with Crystal Palace. The breakthrough, however, didn't come until immediately after the interval when Joel Ward's strike was deflected into his own net by Leander Dundonker, a goal that went down as an own goal by the Wolves man. Things went from bad to worse for the away side when Roman Saiss was sent off for his second bookable offence later on in the half. But right at the death, Jota rescued a point for the 10 men of Wolves, firing home following Adama Traore's cross as both sides had to settle for a share of the spoils. A result and a point that doesn't really satisfy either side. Wolves had the better of the chances in the game, but when Palace went a goal up and Wolves went a man down, Palace should have killed the game off and saw the game out, especially with a chance that Christian Benteke had for the home side in the second half. But for Wolves, they rescue a point very, very late on, but without a win in their opening 6 games, things aren't looking too great right now for the side that finished 7th last season. Palace will now turn their attention to their next league game, which is against Norwich on Saturday, whilst Wolves will be looking to finally win their first game of the season when they host Watford on the same day. Our next game was played out to be a goalless stalemate at St James's Park as Newcastle and Brighton were forced to share the spoils in Saturday evening's fixture. The better of the chances fell to the Seagulls, who even had the ball in the back of the net at one point in the first half when debutant Steven Alzate headed home, but the flag was up for offside against him, and rightly so. The Seagulls also saw Aaron Connolly's shot be cleared off the line in incredible style by Fabian Schär, whilst at the other end, Newcastle had chances through Joelinton and Miguel Almiron, but in the end, both goalkeepers kept a clean sheet and both sides went away with a point apiece. A goalless stalemate doesn't really help either side here, to be honest. Brighton will be kicking themselves for once again not taking their chances, whilst Newcastle may feel they could have nicked it, but ultimately they held on for the point. And another good sign for the Magpies is that Andy Carroll made his return in a Newcastle shirt for a cameo role in the final 10 minutes. And of course, the Newcastle fans will be hoping to see a lot more of him going forward. Newcastle travel to Leicester in their next league game, whilst the Seagulls turn their attention to an away trip to Stamford Bridge to face Chelsea next weekend. Our penultimate game saw a goal in each half from West Ham, as it was enough for them to take all 3 points at the London Stadium against the Manchester United side, who didn't really offer the home side much of in terms of a threat. The Hammers broke the deadlock close to half-time through Andrei Yarmolenko, whose left-footed strike managed to beat David De Gea in the United goal. United were then dealt another big blow in the second half when Marcus Rashford was forced to exit the game through injury, and then things went from bad to worse for United when West Ham doubled their lead when Aaron Cresswell's free kick found its way into the back of the net. A free kick that, despite David De Gea getting a hand to the ball, wasn't enough to keep it from going out. And from there, West Ham saw the game out and took all 3 points in the process. A great win for West Ham here and a clean sheet to boot, and this now makes it 5 games on the run unbeaten, and with some favourable fixtures coming up, the Hammers will be fancying their chances at keeping this sort of run going for a while yet. As for United though, big problems. Their squad's thin in key areas, and that was highlighted in this game now more than ever. And with issues within their fan base, their squad, their staff members and their club hierarchy, they all need to be addressed and sorted as soon as possible. And it is interesting to see the change of mood a result can have, given that last week's result against Leicester was a victory and the mood was completely different. West Ham's next league game comes against Bournemouth, whilst United play Arsenal on Monday night. And in our final game, Arsenal came from behind twice to beat Aston Villa 3-2 at the Emirates Stadium. It took 20 minutes for the game to get its opening goal, and it was scored by the away side as Anwar El Ghazi's cross was met by John McGinn, whose smart finish put Villa ahead. Things got worse for Arsenal shortly before the interval when Ainsley Maitland-Niles was sent off for a second bookable offence following a challenge on Neil Taylor, but just before the hour mark, it was the 10 men of Arsenal who equalised. Matteo Guendouzi was brought down in the penalty area and the referee pointed to the spot, and from the resulting spot kick, it was Nicola Pepe who stepped up and converted from 12 yards. However, Arsenal weren't back on level terms for long, as almost immediately after, Villa restored their lead. Jack Grealish's run through the defence finished with a low cross that found Wesley, and the striker poked home to put Villa back in front. But with 10 minutes to go, Arsenal fought back to equalise again, through an unlikely goalscorer this time in Callum Chambers to set up an interesting finale. A finale that contained Arsenal scoring the winning goal. And it's no prizes for guessing who scored it, but Arsenal's talisman Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang called upon when needed the most, scored his 6th goal of the season from a free kick that won the game for the Gunners. A great win for Arsenal, a tough win, a win that they made a lot more work for themselves in, but they got the job done in the end, and that's all that matters. There's issues in terms of team selection that I'm sure fans aren't happy with, but they got the 3 points, and for the run that they've been on recently, that's all they can ask for. As for Villa, another game, another missed opportunity, and more points dropped. They seem to have issues during the latter stages of games in keeping their focus, and they need to change that going forward as soon as possible. Arsenal will be looking to put together back-to-back wins when they take on Manchester United on Monday night in their next league game, whilst Villa host Burnley in their next fixture. And that wraps up this Premier League review show for Game 6 of the 2019-2020 season. Guys, if you have any thoughts or comments on any of the round's results or any of the round's major talking points, I'd love to read them in the comment section below. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch the Football Observer. This has been another Premier League review show, and I will soon speak with you all again soon in another video.